Hi everyone, welcome back to With Her Nose Stuck in a Book. My name's Nikki. Today we're going to be going through 26 books that I want to read in 2026. And the challenge that I gave myself for this list is that I didn't buy any new books for it. I chose the 26 books from books that I already had on my shelves because I've got far too many books that I need to read before I buy any new ones. So that's part of my kind of goal this year, is to buy less books and whittle my way through the ones that I already have. So I'll only really be buying books if it's for book club or for studying. So that's the kind of the goal. So these are 26 books that I've had on my shelves for different amounts of time. And yeah, let's get started at looking at them. So the first one that I have is Julia by Sandra Newman, and as you can see, I bought this when it first came out. I think it was 2 years ago. Yep, 2023. So I bought this when it first came out because I was just like, oh my god, I have to read this, and then I didn't. And read several other things instead. I actually reread 1984 since then and still haven't read this. So it's Julia by Sandra Newman, and this is the events of 1984 by George Orwell, but seen from the character of Julia's perspective, which sounds really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to reading it. So it says on the back here, a magnificent retelling of 1984 that goes beyond Winston Smith's story to reveal what Oceania was like for women, which sounds really interesting. I actually studied 1984 in depth at school for, it was either 4th or 5th year, for an extended essay, and really enjoyed doing that. I've read 1984 since then. We read it last year again for book club, so it will be really interesting to see what Sandra Newman does with that story. Next up is another hardback that I bought when it first came out with the intentions of reading it straight away, and then didn't, and I don't know why, because it is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I absolutely love everything that I've read by Taylor Jenkins Reid. My favourite of hers is Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Daisy Jones and the Six is probably a close second, and Carrie Soto's Back. I liked Malibu Rising, but not quite as much as the other three. And I've read her back catalogue, some of her back catalogue, as well, and enjoyed them all. So yeah, I was really excited when this came out. But yeah, I've not read it yet, so it's high up on my my list for reading in 2026. So it's called Atmosphere, Taylor Jenkins Reid, and it's described as a love story but in space, so that's cool. And it's set in the 1980s. So they go on a mission in December of 1984, and in that mission everything changes in an instant. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this. I've heard all good things about it. I've not heard anything negative, so really looking forward to that one. The last hardback that I have here is Sunrise on the Reaping, which again was so excited when it came out, and I actually read about 100 or so pages of it, maybe 150 pages of it, and for some reason got distracted and put it down and didn't finish it. So I'm definitely going to be reading that soon. Obviously it's coming out as a film later on this year, so I will definitely be reading it well before that happens. This is obviously Haymitch's story from the Hunger Games series, so his kind of backstory. And yeah, I'm looking forward to finding out how Haymitch became the way he is in the Hunger Games trilogy, because there's quite obviously a very painful backstory there for him, and I'm really loving the the kind of origin stories of the Hunger Games characters that Suzanne Collins is doing, and I hope we do get more of them. But yeah, again, I've only ever heard one negative review of this, but everybody else has said it was brilliant. And from what I read when it first came out, the first kind of 100 to 150 pages, I was really enjoying it. So again, I don't know why I let myself get distracted and not finished it, but I did, and I will be fixing that soon. So that's that one. Next up, I have a series of books that I've had on my shelf for about a year, and I've been really intrigued by them. It is a YA series, and it is a dystopian series, and that is the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. There is obviously 5 books here in this series, and I would like to read at least some of them this year. So this, as I say, it's a YA dystopian, and I'll just read the back here. The Earth is dying. Darrow is a red, a miner in the interior of Mars. His mission is to extract enough precious elements to one day tame the surface of the planet and allow humans to live on it. The Reds are humanity's last hope, or so it appears, until the day Darrow discovers it's all a lie. That Mars has been habitable and inhabited for generations by a class of people calling themselves the Golds, a class of people who look down at Darrow and his fellow men as slave labour, to be exploited and worked to death without a second thought. Until the day Darrow, with the help of the mysterious group of rebels, disguises himself as a Gold and infiltrates their command school, intent on taking down his oppressors from the inside. But the command school is a battlefield, and Darrow isn't the only student with an agenda. So, yeah, that's what that's about. Sorry, the writing is absolutely tiny on the back of this book, and I am waiting for my new glasses arriving, so that is why I am stumbling over the words, because it's tiny, and I went and got my eyes tested recently, and I have a prescription for reading glasses, and I'm waiting for them arriving. But books with tiny text at the moment is a real struggle for me, so yeah, I do apologise for the reading of that there, but hopefully by my next video my glasses will have arrived. So Earth is dying, we need to inhabit Mars or other planets. It's a very kind of standard trope of dystopian fiction or science fiction. I've heard all good things about this series, and apparently once you start reading it, you kind of fly through them, which is always good. So yeah, there's 5 books here in that series to get through, so I'm counting this as one of the 26 because I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself to finish the whole series this year, but if it happens, it happens. But yeah, so that is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Next up is The Bees by Lillian Paul. I've had this book for a few years. It's quite a random one. It was shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction, and basically it's almost like a kind of dystopian but set in a beehive from what I can tell. So it says here, Flora 717 is a survivor born into the lowest class of the totalitarian hive society. She's prepared to sacrifice everything for the queen, surviving internal massacres, religious purges and terrifying invasions by vicious wasps. With each act of bravery, her status grows, revealing both the enemies within and the sinister secrets that rule the hive. But when her instinct to serve is overwhelmed by a fierce and deeply forbidden maternal love, she breaks the most sacred law of all. So yeah, I just thought it was a really interesting premise, that like you're exploring the ideas of like humans and stuff, but through bees and like the beehive system. And yeah, it comes here highly recommended by Madeline Miller, who wrote The Song of Achilles, which is a brilliant book, so that's high praise as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to finally seeing what this is like because it just sounds super interesting to me. Next up is another dystopian, and it's The Followers by Megan Angelo, and this is set in 2051, and it's about Marlo and her mother, and they've been picked to basically live their life on camera, so kind of like Truman Show, Big Brother style, in this community of people that are doing the same thing. But the problem is that it's her mother that wants to do this. Marlo hasn't picked this life at all, and she doesn't want to be on camera. She hates the fact that every aspect of her life is shown to the world. But she doesn't know how to escape it. But then one day she discovers a secret about her past and her birth that might allow her to escape this life. So yeah, it's a dystopian that kind of taps into a very kind of relevant part of society today, with the whole social media and people living their lives on camera, putting every aspects of their life on social media and stuff. So yeah, I'm intrigued to read this. I bought it a few years ago. I was going through a wee phase of reading just dystopian novel after dystopian novel, so I bought a whole bunch of them at once, and there's some that I have that I still haven't read, and this is one of them, so looking forward to getting to that this year. Next up, I have The Women by Kristin Hannah. This is meant to be excellent. Again, I've read quite a few different Kristin Hannah books, and I have really enjoyed them all. This one is set in the Vietnam War, and it's about how women were like, how women were used in that war, how they were affected by it, and all that sort of thing. I'm not going to attempt to read the back of it because the writing is tiny and I can't see it. But yeah, I read the first 50 pages when I first got the book a few years ago, and again just got distracted by something else. But as I say, it's about friendship, it's about how war affects people, it's about bravery, just how women can be heroes too, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Apparently it's quite emotional as well, quite a heart-wrenching book. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Like I say, Kristin Hannah's never let me down before, and I'm really looking forward to finally getting to that book. Next up we have The Vegetarian by Han Kang, and I thought this was the author of something else, but now that I'm thinking of it, I don't think it is. But yeah, it says on the back here, darkly beautiful modern classic about rebellion, eroticism and the female body. One of the most extraordinary books you will ever read. And basically inside it tells you that Young Hai and her husband are ordinary people. He is an office worker, she's a dutiful wife. Their marriage is interrupted when Young Hai, seeking a more plant-like existence, commits a shocking act of subversion. She refuses to eat meat. Thus begins a disturbing and thrilling psychological drama about taboo, desire, rebellion and fantasy. So yeah, so kind of tapping in again to the topics of today about vegetarianism, veganism, how meat's quite bad for the planet, and stuff like that. I was going to say that I thought it was by the same author as, what's it called again? Tender is the Flesh, but it's not. It's a different author. But I picked this up after I read Tender the Flesh, because I thought it sounded not similar, because obviously Tender is the Flesh is in a category all of its own, but yeah, it's that same idea of the sustainability of the meat industry and stuff like that, and should we be looking at alternatives. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what this one's all about. Next up, I have Quint. This is by Robert Lautner, and if you can't tell by the cover, this is the story of Quint from Jaws. Jaws was obviously written by Peter Blenchley, and it is a massive movie that I'm pretty sure almost everyone has seen and knows the story of. But yeah, this is from Quint, who is one of the guys that goes out with Chief Brody on the boat to hunt down the shark. And obviously, if you've seen the film Jaws, or if you've read the book, you'll know that Quint has quite the backstory, that he was in World War II and he went down with his ship, the USS Indianapolis, I believe it was, and infamously, like, the soldiers were stranded in the water for a very, very long time, and they were basically getting picked off by sharks, and Quint tells that story in Jaws. And I think that this book takes you back to his time in the war and on the Indianapolis, and tells that story in more detail. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this, because Jaws is one of my favourite movies, and the book's really good as well, but the book is quite different in terms of what happens with the characters, but I am really looking forward to this one. Next up, I have Butter, which has kind of been on my radar since I first saw it in shops. It kind of went viral when it came out, and it was everywhere. It's Butter by Asako Yuzuki, and it's basically about murder and cooking, kind of put together. So it says here, gourmet cook Minako Kaji sits in Tokyo Detention Center, convicted of the serial murders of lonely businessmen who she is said to have seduced with her delicious home cooking. She refuses to speak with any press, that is, until journalist Rika Machida writes a letter asking for her recipe for beef stew, and Kaji can't resist writing back. Rika rarely cooks more than an instant ramen, but as her conversations with Kaji unfold, they seem closer to a masterclass in food than journalistic research. With each meal, Rika eats under Kaji's close instruction. Something is awakening in her body. Might she and Kaji have more in common than she once thought? So yeah, it's about food and murder. And yeah, I'm just really intrigued to see what it's all about, because as I say, it was absolutely everywhere. Everyone was reading it. So yeah, I got a copy of it for my birthday this year, and I'm looking forward to finally having a chance to read it. Another book that I bought a year or two ago is Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. I'd seen a lot of this on Book Talk and Bookstagram and stuff. It's a series of books. I only have this one so far, and it's the Boys of Tommen series. And from what I can see, it's set in I don't know if it's a boarding school or just a normal school, but each book in the series, I believe, is based on a different couple. So it says here, when two worlds collide, nothing will ever be the same again. Johnny Kavanagh has everything going for him. Primed for stardom on the rugby pitch, he's a force to be reckoned with. Nothing will stop him hitting the heights, not even when the shy new girl at Tommen College with sad eyes and hidden bruises, the one that distracts him as no one else ever has. Life has never been easy for Shannon Lynch. She arrives at the prestigious private school praying for a fresh start, desperate to shake off the demons that plague her. On her very first day, she encounters the notorious Johnny Kavanagh. Instantly drawn to him, Shannon finds herself once again the target of bullies as she forms a fragile alliance with the rugby's rising star. But as they fall into a complicated relationship and grapple with the undeniable chemistry, Johnny and Shannon cannot foresee the obstacles that will threaten their blossoming relationship. So yeah, It's obviously a romance. I believe it is YA, but I'm not sure. But it's obviously set in a school, so I would assume it's YA. But yeah, as I say, there's quite a few books in this series. I only have this one, but I am hoping to get to it soon because I've heard all good things about it. It's one of those book talk books that kind of holds up. Everybody has said it is really good when they read it. So yeah, looking forward to that. Might read that in February for like kind of Valentine's Day vibes. Next up here, I have a book that I've never read before, but I don't know how. It's Anne of Green Gables by Ella M. Montgomery. Obviously, this is a children's classic, and it has its own TV series and stuff now that's been really popular. I believe it's on Netflix. But yeah, I've never read this. I don't actually really know much about it. It says on the back here, it's delightful when your imaginations come true, isn't it? Marilla and Matthew Cuthbert are in for a big surprise. They're waiting for an orphan boy to help with the work at Green Gables, but a skinny red-haired girl turns up instead. Feisty and full of spirit, it's not long before Anne Shirley finds herself in all kinds of trouble, but soon it's impossible to imagine life at Green Gables without her. So yeah, sounds good. I've never really heard of anybody that doesn't like Anne from Anne of Green Gables, so yeah, I think she's like a brilliant heroine. From what I believe, if you're a girl who loves books, you're going to love Anne because I think she likes books as well. If as I say, I don't really know much about it, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting to this year finally. Because it's a children's classic that has just been on my shelf for so long, or on my that I've wanted to read for so long, and I'm not sure why I didn't read it when I was younger, but I didn't, and I'm going to rectify that this year. Next up, I have a book called The Burning by Laura Bates. Again, this is another dystopian type book, and it basically just says at the back, no school, tick, no town, tick, no surname, tick, social media profiles erased. There's nothing to trace Anna back to her old life, nothing to link her to the incident. At least that's what she thinks, until the whispers start up again. So yeah, I don't really know much more than that about what this is about, but it looked cool. Again, it's another one of the dystopians that I picked up when I was like basically just burning through dystopians, no pun intended. But it says in the front, this is a book girls need to read. Yeah, so I am looking forward to that one. Sounds interesting. Next up is a reread. It's True Grit by Charles Portis. I picked up a second-hand copy of this because I want to reread it. I read it when I was about, I don't know, 19, 20. So about 20 years ago, and I really, really enjoyed it. I read it because I had read The Secret History and the Little Friend by Donna Tartt, and this was by the same publishers, and as you can see at the front, it came with an introduction by Donna Tartt. I don't know if you can see that. So that was purely the reason I bought it, was because I loved those two books so much, and this came with an introduction from that author, and it was the same publisher, and I absolutely loved it. And I read a few other books by the same publisher, and they just seem to be like great at picking or finding the best books to publish, because there were so many of them that were just like amazing. But yeah, True Grit by Charles Portis. If you have, there's two different movie versions. There is, I believe it's a Clint Eastwood one, and then I can't remember who's in the newer version, but there was one more recently. So there's two different versions of this in movie wise, but it's about a young girl who I think it's her so it's a young girl. I think she's 14, 15, and her father is basically killed, and she wants vengeance basically, and she has heard of this man called Rooster, who has grit, which is why it's called True Grit. And she convinces him basically to help her avenge her father's murder. So yeah, it's a western, but obviously with a twist, because it wasn't very common to find a western that had a young girl as the kind of main protagonist of the story. So I want to give that a reread this year, because I just remember it being excellent, and I want to see if it's still the same. Also, I'm reading currently Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry, which is another western that kind of subverts the genre a little bit. And it'd be interesting to compare the two, because I'm really enjoying that so far, though I'm only about 100 pages into it so far, but I'm really enjoying that. So it would be interesting to reread this and just see how they hold up against each other, and to see if this holds up to the memory that I have of it in my head. Next up, I have 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini, who is the author of The Kite Runner. This is his second book, I believe, and it is about Mariam, who is 15 and sent to Kabul to marry Rashid. Nearly 2 decades later, a friendship grows between Mariam and a local teenager, Layla, as strong as the ties between mother and daughter. When the Taliban take over, life becomes a desperate struggle against starvation, brutality and fear, yet love can move a person to act in unexpected ways and lead them to overcome the most daunting obstacles with a startling heroism. So yeah, it's about I would assume it focuses on arranged marriage and what life was like under the Taliban. If it's anything like The Kite Runner, it's obviously going to be good. I think they're both kind of held up as similar as being as good as each other, and coincidentally this is published by Bloomsbury, which is the publisher that I was just talking about, that publishes Donna Tartt's works and the True Grit books that I was saying. The publisher just seems to not be able to do any wrong. Like they're brilliant at picking out the best books to publish. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what this one is like after really enjoying The Kite Runner. Next up is another one that I have literally had on my shelf for years and years and years. This isn't the same copy, because I don't know what happened to the copy that I originally had, because it had the original book cover on it that was like the Grim Reaper-y type guy on the front, if I remember rightly. This must be a movie tie-in cover, because it's got an actual person on the cover, so it looks like the movie tie-in, but it also says it's an anniversary edition with new content, and it is The Book Thief by Marcus Suzak. I don't know why I've never read this, because as I say, I've had it, one version or the other of it, on my shelves for at least 20 years, and just never really got round to it. It was a book that kind of floated around when people were giving me suggestions of the 40 books to read before I turned 40. A couple of people mentioned it, but then ultimately ended up going with other books. So because it wasn't on my list for the 40 books that I read before I was 40, I decided to put it on this list for this year, because I really do want to read it, and I was a bit disappointed that it wasn't chosen for that list. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So what's interesting about this book is it is narrated by Death. It says on the back here, "This is the tale of the book thief, and as narrated by Death. And when Death tells a story, you really have to listen. It's just a small story, really, about, amongst other things, a girl, an accordionist, some fanatical Germans, a Jewish fighter, and quite a lot of thievery." So yeah, this is kind of a modern classic, like a recent classic. I think this will become a classic, though I've obviously not read it yet, but like from what I've heard, like it's one of the best books written in the last kind of, I want to say 30 years. When was it out? It was published in 2005, yeah, so if I bought it when it was first out, then it would have been about 20 years that it's been sitting on my shelf. But yeah, I'm intrigued to find out what all the fuss is about with that one. Another book that I've had for quite a while, this is a second-hand copy, but this author's been on my radar for quite a long time, but I've never read any of her books yet. This is The House at Riverton by Kate Morton, and it is a story of love, mystery, and a secret history revealed. And I really like these types of stories. It flits between 1924 and 1999, but set in the same house. So, summer 1924, on the eve of the glittering society party by the lake of the grand English country house, a young poet takes his life. The only witness, sisters Hannah and Emmeline Hartford, will never speak to each other again. Then winter 1999, Grace Bradley, 98, one-time housemaid at Riverton Manor, is visited by a young director making a film about the poet's suicide. Ghosts awaken and old memories, long consigned to the dark reaches of Grace's mind, begin to sneak back through the cracks. A shocking secret threatens to emerge, something history has forgotten but Grace never could. Set as the war-shattered Edwardian summer surrenders to the decadent 20s, The House at Riverton is a thrilling mystery and a compelling love story. So yeah, that's The House at Riverton. As I say, I really like these styles of books that are like set in big houses and they go back and forth between the past and the present, and there's like secrets to be discovered and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to finally getting around to that one. I do apologise if you can all of a sudden hear a lot of noise in the background. My dogs have just woke up. As I say in every video, I do apologise. Trust me, they're annoying me more than they're annoying you. Next up is another book that I've had for a little while. It is When Christ and His Saints Slept by Sharon Penman. It's the first in a trilogy of books about Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine and their family. I have read The Sun and Splendour by Sharon Penman, which was about the York family, so Edward IV, Richard III, and the War of the Roses, and that was really good, but they're very, very long. I think The Sun and Splendour was about 1,000 pages. This one is similar. Yeah, it's like 900 pages. So, and this is just the first in a trilogy. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting around to this. So this is about Henry II, Eleanor of Aquitaine, and how he comes to get the throne as a result of the anarchy and the fight between King Stephen and his mum Matilda. Henry ends up inheriting the throne, and their family is a bit dysfunctional, let's put it that way. All the Plantagenets families have their own dysfunctional situation, but Henry and Eleanor and their sons, who include Richard I and King John, they're very, very dysfunctional, and I'm looking forward to that. So next is the Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. I believe again this is dystopian, and it's also about slavery. So it says on the back here, in 1976, Dana dreams of being a writer. In 1815, she is assumed a slave. When Diana first meets Rufus on a Maryland plantation, he's drowning. She saves his life, and it will happen again and again. Neither of them understands his power to summon her whenever his life is threatened, nor the significance of the ties that bind them. And each time Dana saves him, the more aware she is that her own life might be over before it's even begun. So yeah, it says here it's a groundbreaking masterpiece about the extraordinary story of two people bound by blood, separated by so much more than time. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Apparently Octavia E. Butler is, I've not read any of her stuff at all, but apparently she is amazing, so I'm looking forward to reading that as my first of her books. Next up is James by Percival Everett. This is, I've just realised I've got 3 different four kind of alternative viewpoints of famous books or OG stories, later origin stories, etc. Because I've got Quint, what else? Sunrise on the Reaping, and what was the other one? Julia, the 1984 one. So this is another in that kind of style. This is James, as I said, by Percival Everett, and this is I don't know if it's a retelling of Huckleberry Finn from his point of view or if it's just his life story, but yes, it's basically Jim from The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, and it's basically just kind of that story from his point of view in his life and stuff. So yep, so yeah, it's basically Huckleberry Finn but his point of view. So I am looking forward to that. Again, I've heard all good things. I've not read anything from that author before, but I have heard of him. I've heard his name about, and apparently he is very good, so looking forward to that one. Next up is A Study in Scarlet by Sherlock Holmes. I got the full set of the Sherlock Holmes novels for my birthday this year, and I am hoping to work my way through them. Probably won't get them all read this year because there is quite a few, but this is the first of them, and it is quite small. A Study in Scarlet, and we all know the story of Sherlock Holmes, who he is, Dr. Watson. I have obviously seen this in the version of Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch, so I kind of vaguely know the story, but yeah, I'm intrigued to read these because these were kind of the first detective novels ever written. There was instances of detectives in novels before Arthur Conan Doyle wrote these books, but this was the first kind of book with the detective as the kind of main character, and like that went on to be like a series type thing. And obviously nowadays we have so many crime series with detectives as their kind of the main protagonists that it's hard to imagine that wasn't a thing. But yeah, Arthur Conan Doyle kind of set the paving stones for that. Next up I have Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. This is the author that wrote The 13th Tale, which is one of my favourite books. I've had this for a while, and I want to just basically get around to reading it. It's about the Thames basically, and the history of the Thames. It starts off I think in the kind of medieval times, or maybe a bit after that, and I think it kind of just goes through the history of the people that are around that area, and I think it's kind of about storytelling as well. So it says, in an ancient inn on the Thames, the regulars are entertaining themselves by telling stories when the door bursts open and in steps an injured stranger. In his arms is the drowned corpse of a child. Hours later, the dead girl stirs, takes a breath, and returns to life. Is it a miracle? Is it magic? And who does the little girl belong to? An exquisitely crafted, multi-layered mystery brimming with storytelling and the urgent scientific curiosity of the Darwinian age. Okay, so sorry, it's not medieval times, it's obviously Victorian times, but yeah, so it also says infused with the spirit of Jane Eyre, Rebecca, and the Woman in White. So that just sounds really, really good. Next up, I have Pet Sematary by Stephen King. I kind of want to start reading at least one Stephen King book a year because I've not read very much of his, and I would like to read more. A couple of Halloweens ago, I read Salem's Lot. I've read Carrie and stuff like that, but I've never read Pet Sematary. I've seen the film, the more recent film. I can't remember if I've seen the older version of the film. I probably have, but yeah, I would really like to read the book, and I'm going to try and do that this Halloween period, so October time. You probably know the story. It is about a family that move into a new home, and their child gets knocked down, I believe. I'm purely basing this on the film, and I think the book is different because in the book I think it's the little boy that gets knocked down, but in the film the little boy gets knocked down, but I think in the book it's the girl. But yeah, so the father, I believe, is so grief stricken that he tries to bring him back to life using the pet cemetery that is at the back of the town, and things obviously go horribly wrong. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Like, as I say, I would like to read more of Stephen King, so if I could read maybe one every kind of Halloween period, that would be good. Next up, I have Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I picked this up earlier in the year. This is now 2026, so I picked it up last year. And it is about colonialism in Africa. So it says here, Okonkwo is the greatest wrestler and warrior alive, and his fame spreads throughout West Africa like a bushfire in Harmattan. And when he accidentally kills a clansman, things begin to fall apart. He returns from exile to find missionaries and colonial governors have arrived in the village. With his world thrown radically off balance, he can only hurtle towards tragedy. So yeah, it's about how like colonialism and Christian missionaries going into places like villages in Africa and stuff really affected the people there and their lifestyles and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading that. Next up is another reread, and it's Old School by Tobias Wolff, again by Bloomsbury. This was the era where I was reading all the kind of Bloomsbury books and just loving them all. So this was another one that I read at the time, so probably around 20 years ago, and it's about a kind of prestigious school in America, and the boys are competing for this writing contest. So like a famous writer visits the school and there's this writing contest, and the winner gets a private audience with this writer, and then they find out that this is going to be Hemingway. Hemingway is coming to their school, and they have the chance to potentially have a private audience with Ernest Hemingway. And basically the competition heats up, and it's about how willing you are to sacrifice your morals and your values and stuff to get something you want. And yeah, I remember it being really, really good. And I'm looking forward to revisiting it. And the last book on this list is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Again, I started this when I bought it like a couple of years ago. I apparently got 83 pages in and got distracted, as you can see is a running theme in my life. But yeah, so this is coming out as a film in March with Ryan Gosling as lead, and I'm very excited about that because these 83 pages that I read, I was really enjoying, and it was really funny and stuff. And obviously I didn't get any further, so I'm looking forward to reading this. I will probably read this in February because the film comes out early March, and I would like to read it in time to be able to see it in the cinema. It's basically about this guy who wakes up in space by himself, and he doesn't know why he's there. He can't remember anything. It says here, a lone astronaut, an impossible mission, an ally he never imagined. Ryland Grace is the sole survivor on a desperate last chance mission, and if he fails, humanity and the Earth itself will perish. But right now he doesn't know that. All he knows is that he's been asleep for a very, very long time, and he's just woken to find himself hurtling through space millions of miles from home. It's up to him to puzzle out an impossible scientific mystery, and he's got to do it all alone. Or does he? So yeah, as I say, it was really funny from what I can remember when I first started reading it, when I got it a couple of years ago, and I'm really looking forward to the film, so I will be reading this very soon because, as I say, the film comes out early March. It looks, from the trailer, it looks really good as well. So that's my 26 books for 2026. Hopefully I will get through them all. Obviously I have other books that I need to read for studying and for book club and stuff. And as I said in a previous video, I'm not putting too much pressure on myself to read like a certain amount of books this year. So if I don't get through them all, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. But it's nice to have just a kind of idea of what I am going to read. So yeah, I will be getting started on these very soon. And thank you for watching today. And until next time, I'll see you later.